Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third day of the music theory unit. Today we're going to be talking about chord qualities, which means these four different kinds of C chords that we have down here. Now, a couple things I want to point out before we listen to the music is, first of all, the word chord. In music, the word chord always starts with a CH, okay? There are other kinds of chords in our life, like an electrical cable or something you might wear around your shoulders at a graduation, or in geometry, a line on a circle. Those are all called chords, but none of them have that H. Okay? In music, we have to remember when we're writing the word chord, it has an H here. Now, I'm going to have to define chord. So when we look just very briefly at these things we have here, we have four different stacks of exactly three notes. In music, a chord is made up of notes, usually three or more, that are stacked on top of each other, specifically kinds of stacked third intervals. Yesterday I talked about intervals in one of my videos, and we used this keyboard to talk about them. So I'm going to come to that right now. What an interval is the distance between two notes. We always start on the lower note when we're counting intervals, and we have different words to describe different intervals. Usually we use either the word minor or the word major. For example, starting on C, if we look at these chords we have, the bottom notes are always some sort of C and some sort of E, whether it's E flat or E natural. So let's start on C and let's count to three. We have 1, 2, 3. C to E flat is a minor third. That's a slightly smaller interval than this one. 1, 2, 3. C to E natural, that is a major third. It's slightly bigger than this minor third. Okay. So these are the two notes that are the third above C, either E flat or E. Now I told you that chords are made by stacking thirds, which means we have to also start thirds on E or E flat. Let me show you from E flat, we're going to count 1, go up to F natural, that's 2, G flat, that's 3. From E flat up to G flat, that is the interval of a minor third. Now also from E flat, we can count 1, 2, 3. E flat to G, that is a major third. It is slightly larger than the minor third of E flat to G flat. And also, up here in these examples, we have from E natural to G or E natural to G sharp. So let's count thirds above E. So we have E, we're actually going to go up to F sharp for our 2. So we have 1, 2, 3. From E to G, that is a minor third. It is slightly smaller than this interval from E, 1, 2, 3. From E to G sharp, that is a major third. It's just slightly larger than E to G. So all these chords have some sort of C, some sort of E, and some sort of G, whether it's natural, flat, or sharp. Let me go ahead and play these chords for you so you can get a feel for how each one sounds. So here we go. This is diminished first, minor, major, and augmented. Now, I don't know if you can hear it, but as we're going from left to right, the spacing between these notes is actually getting slightly bigger. I told you yesterday, think Ursa minor when you think of a minor chord. Ursa minor is the small bear. Think Ursa major when you see major. That's the big bear, the constellations we looked at yesterday. Smaller than small is diminished. Bigger than big is augmented. So the spacing between these notes is getting bigger as we go from left to right. Before I get too much into that, that'll be a different video, but let me play each one of these chords on its own and just talk about what people usually think these chords sound like. So starting again with C diminished on the left, you should probably be able to hear that there's some sort of harshness to this chord. That's because of how small these intervals are, specifically from C to G flat. That's a pretty harsh interval, so usually this chord sounds pretty harsh to us. Maybe it sounds tense or nervous or upset or angry, all these kinds of negative words. Also, one more thing I should point out is look underneath the notes here. We have C, and I have an asterisk here, like that little star. Normally, diminished, we actually write a small little circle up above the C, but I don't know how to type that easily on my keyboard. I'm just using the asterisk as shorthand. So that's a diminished chord. Let's go ahead and play the minor chord. So we still have this small distance from C to E flat, but we open that up a little bit. We have E flat to G instead of E flat to G flat. So minor chord, let me play this again. It should sound a little less harsh to our ears, but maybe still some negative emotions like sadness or fear. Not as tense, not as spooky as the diminished chord, but still, really, we're not to real comfortable territory for the most part with minor. One more time, C minor. And if you look underneath the chord, I labeled with just a lowercase c. Okay, now in jazz music, you might see this. Oh, I'm sorry, that put the dash in the wrong place. Sometimes in jazz music, you might see a minor chord with a little dash right beside the C or right beside whatever letter it is. That's one other way to have that shorthand. But for classical music and music theory, we're just going to worry about the lowercase letter by itself when we're talking about different kinds of chords. Moving on, let's talk about the major chord. This is the one that we're probably most familiar with, most ready to hear. It's probably going to sound the most normal to our ears. So with the major chord, we have opened up that gap from E flat, or I'm sorry, from C to E flat. Now we're looking C to E natural. So it's a little more open, it's a little brighter, maybe refreshing, maybe happy, maybe energetic. These are all typical sounds that these are all typical feelings people might have with major chords. And so that's an example. That should again be some sort of sound that we're very familiar with. And let me point out this chord label here underneath. We just have a capital C. I said yesterday in music we tend to think lowercase letters for minor and uppercase letters for major. That is the case here. And finally, let's move on to this augmented chord. Let me go ahead and play. So the augmented chord, it also will probably sound pretty surprising to our ears. We're used mostly to hearing major chords and minor chords, so diminished and augmented, they both probably come as a surprise. Let me play the augmented chord again. So the augmented chord, even though this is the most open of the four kinds of chords, it still might sound a little tense to us, and that's because we're just not used to hearing these particular stacked thirds above each other. This is a chord that, like I've said, it probably sounds very surprising. If you hear it in a TV show or a movie, it's probably used at some sort of surprising twist event or something, or maybe dreamlike. This comes from a scale that was very much associated with dreamy sounding music. Either way, just surprising for the most part. I'm going to go ahead and play these four chords together again one more time. Going from left to right, we have diminished, minor, major, augmented, and the sounds that you're probably going to associate with these, or the feelings that you're probably going to associate, will probably be tense, sad, happy, and surprised. All right, thank you everybody. See you in the next video.